I had some bone spurs on my neck that I got from sports injuries when I was young. So I had a lot of pain in my neck. And I found a very famous doctor in Pittsburgh that does what's called a foraminal anatomy. So instead of cutting the back of your neck open, and then for the rest of your life, they fuse your discs together, and for the rest of your life, you're in pain. This doctor developed this foraminal anatomy where they go in through the front and they make a slight slit in your neck and they move your esophagus aside. And then he goes in and he drills out these bone spurs. So people from all over the world come to see this doctor. So I went to Pittsburgh and I had this operation done, and you only stay in the hospital for one night. Came back to North Carolina, and 4 days later in my bed at 11 o'clock p.m., I had a massive heart attack. Now, in retrospect, my transplant team, we all know what happened. I threw a blood clot, or a piece of plaque broke loose, and it went directly into my widowmaker. My wife didn't know what was going on at the time. At 11 p.m., I have a special needs child. We thought maybe it was my daughter having a seizure. There was a lot of confusion when you're woken up in the middle of the night. She realized it was me flopping around in the bed screaming. I passed out from the pain. Don't remember the ambulance ride, none of it. Thank goodness we're only about 3 miles away from the hospital. They realize I'm having a massive heart attack. I get into the ER. They give me some blood thinners. My wife tells me some meds to stabilize me. And I have to tell you that I was flatlined for 20 minutes. They could not resuscitate me. And they did everything. They did 4 times. They stuck the needle with epinephrine into my heart. They did paddle shocks. They did vigorous sternal rubs. They did the whole thing. I was not coming back. Something compelled her to continue to work on me. And while I was laying there, all the puzzle came together. The puzzle unscrambled, and I realized what was going on, because another male spirit had entered the room. And over again, while Dr. Patel was working on me, I heard the same thing. Keep working on him. You can save him. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep working on him. And it struck me while she was talking to me, and that's why she became so kind of weepy and talked about her father. I knew it was her father that was the one in the room, encouraging her and giving her that spiritual energy. She didn't even know why she continued to work on me for 20 minutes. Something compelled her. And while she didn't necessarily hear his voice like I did, because I was right there close to the veil, she felt something that compelled her to keep working on me. I had been in the hospital there for 3 months when one night I was on the 8th floor of the hospital facing Lake Michigan, and this really terrible storm whipped up. And on the 8th floor, it's almost like you're in the sky and you're near the lake, so the rain was like really, really vicious. The clouds came in, a lot of lightning, and these heavy sheets of rain were just banging against my window. It's, the middle of the night and I can't sleep. And all of a sudden, it was almost as if like all of your past mistakes in your life come rushing in. All this negative energy comes rushing in. And I felt like I was a magnet just pulling all of these things towards me. And I was tormented by some of my past mistakes and things like that. And before you know it, my heart went into tachycardia. The nurse came rushing in and she said, "There's no reason why your heart should be going into tachycardia. What's going on?" And they gave me some medicine and she left the room again. And I just, you get to a point, I was so tired of fighting. After fighting 20 years for my special needs child, I had these other health issues. My heart was giving out. I felt my spirit leaving my body. And I just collapsed in that moment and I cried out, "Do with me what you will." And in that moment, that's when I had my most profound near-death experience. It's very difficult to articulate this and to explain what happened next. But I found myself standing in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of like the way I explain it is it's kind of like looking outside an airplane window on a clear day, and all you see is blue skies, but you're really looking at nothing. You see everything, but nothing at all. And that was the first part of my experience. I found myself standing in the middle of nowhere, and I could see myself down in the bed, this atrophied body. I'm about 174 pounds. I had atrophied down to about 131. I was a skeleton of a human being. And there I was lying there, this heart pump keeping me alive, all these IVs, wires coming out of me. So I'm looking down on myself. I could see myself there. And yet, while I'm standing in the middle of nowhere, I have the same green hospital gown on, but I'm whole. And I say to myself, what can possibly be going on here? What is happening? And in that moment, I realized that I was connected to the universe, the vast wisdom of the universe, all of it. It was almost as if someone had picked up the grains of my being and threw them into a strong wind and just scattered me across this infinite, timeless expanse of the universe. And it was such an amazing thing, because while I was standing there in that place, I felt like all I had to do, if I had a question, all I had to do was think about it, and the answer came to me. It was in that place I did not experience. I know that I've read some other near-death experience since I've had mine, but there wasn't, the five senses had no functionality in that place. In other words, I couldn't smell anything or taste anything or feel anything or hear anything. It was just me standing in the middle of this timeless expanse. And having been raised Catholic, I was I was disappointed that I did not see any divine being, which was an interesting part of my experience, because I did not see angels. I did not see Jesus Christ. I did not see anything. But what I did feel, and what was kind of imprinted on my spirit in a way that I wholly and completely understood, it was like their communication is telepathic. It's sensed and felt and then absorbed. That's how communication is. It's without words. That was my experience. And the Creator impressed upon me things like, I am omnipotent. This is the source of divine energy. This is your real identity. This is the power back of all things. And while I was in that place, I began to see complex mathematical equations just hanging there. And I thought to myself, wow, the laws that govern the universe are so simple, so elegant. And I understood in that place that I was not my body, my race, my religion. I was part of this love and light that is this expanse, this divine energy. And what happened next was so fascinating, because then I saw and became part of this web of twinkling lights. And the way I describe this web, which is what the book is named after, it was trillions and trillions and trillions of neurons woven together in this beautiful tapestry of twinkling lights. And they just were infinite. And they just seemed to hang on the ceiling of the universe. But in that place, I realized that each little spark of light, or quark, and quarks are the smallest building blocks of matter, which are made of light. And I understood in that place that this is how the divine creates. The divine creates with light. God uses light to transform and heal us, and also uses that same light energy, whether it's an animate or inanimate thing. All things are one. All things are, it's kind of like we're all made of the same stuff. And when you think about that, when you think about that, that's the recipe. Light is the recipe, and they create infinite possibilities in the universe. They can create a solar system, they can create a plant, a tree, a person, or a dog. It's all the same. And as I stood there, I realized that we're all connected. Everything is connected. We're all one. And that was the message. It was a message of oneness and unity. I had an experience of a couple of life reviews while I was standing in that place connected to everything. And I thought to myself, loneliness is just an illusion. How can we be lonely when we're connected to everything? And it was a beautiful feeling to feel that oneness with everything in the universe. And I saw the nurses. I'm looking down on my atrophied body, and I saw the nurses running in and out of patients' room on my floor. And what was curious about this is that I only saw the nurses that I had made negative assumptions and judgments about, which was an incredible experience. And it was kind of like their lives were going backwards to who they were now, back to childhood. And it was almost as if every time there was a watershed event in their life, like abuse or a bad personal decision or an accident, something that happened out of their control, circumstances out of their control, it was as if this movie that was moving in high speed backwards to their birth would stop for a millisecond to give me a glimpse of what had happened to that person. And I understood that this was painting a portrait of who this person was now and why they had become who they are. And I thought to myself, how could I possibly judge these people so harshly? And at the same time, on a different screen, I saw my own life, and I saw the things that I was most ashamed of and the mistakes that I had made in my life. And I forgave myself in that moment. And I said, how could I have ever judged you so harshly? Because, when you think about it, we always are so much harder on ourselves than anybody else. And we, as human beings, we only act on the information that we have at the moment. So we make mistakes in our lives, and this whole life is an evolving process, of hopefully evolving towards something better, moving toward that light, that love, that place that we all come from. And after those life reviews, I had this moment of understanding humanity and this divine source of love and light that we all come from, this place that doesn't judge us. And I felt like I never wanted to leave that place. And then the most fascinating part for me was, I have a special needs child who has never been able to speak to me and who's suffered and struggled most of her life. And I saw her standing there in the middle of nowhere. She came out of that web, and there was Maria standing there. And when I saw her, in the temporal world, she can't stop writhing her hands. She can't speak to me. She's always having seizures. She's always struggling. And we've had a lot of moments together. There have been times in my life where I prayed that God would just take her and relieve her from all this pain. But when I saw her standing there in the middle of nowhere, and she had this light emanating through her, and it wasn't the kind of light, any kind of light that you and I can see. It was that spiritual light that animates all life, the same spiritual light that comes from this divine source. And there she was, perfect and whole. And I said to her, Maria, your mother and I have taken you everywhere. We don't know what to do for you. We don't know how to comfort you anymore when you're having seizures. We've given up everything to try and heal you. And I've never heard your voice. I've never heard you say, I love you, Daddy. And in that moment, in that unspoken language of the ethereal, I said to her, tell me what I can do to comfort you. And she said 3 words that transformed my life. She said, just love me. And when she said, just love me, I cried out and screamed into that infinite expanse that I never want to leave this place. And when I said that, I found myself back in my hospital bed. This whole journey has just transformed my life in such beautiful ways. And I've learned one important thing, that the divine expresses and experiences life through us. And this is why I believe that this web that I experience there in the spiritual realm represents the light and dark struggle of all humanity through every age. It's kind of like a mirror. What we do here affects this spiritual web and vice versa. I really believe that. Some could call it karma, you can call it whatever you want. But that's why what we do here matters so much. And this is where purpose comes into the whole thing, because I believe that every one of us is born with this light inside of us. And that is our purpose. That's that talent or that mission or that gift that we have to express. And when I was in the web, I noticed that there were some dark parts of the web, some areas where, human beings were not emanating light as much as they should. And when I was in the ethereal space and looking at this, I thought to myself, well, what is that? Why are there some dark parts of the web? And I came to understand that that's where we really weren't letting this divine energy shine through us as much as we should. We weren't living our purpose. And that's what I want. That's what I want the audience to learn from me. I lived 56 years not understanding what my purpose was. I had to die to figure it out. I don't want anyone else to have to go through that. We all come from the divine. We all have this potential to express with this bright light and live out our passion and our dream, but we've got to figure it out. We have a responsibility to figure out what our purpose is, because that's when our light, our quark, our spark shines the brightest, both on earth and in the spiritual realm. So this is really the message that I wanted to communicate today, and I appreciate you having me and allowing me to do that.